A is for Adam, Part 3, Chapter 5, Another Day for You and Me in Paradise. They entered the warm confines of the hut. "Come on, who's in the mood for some delicious grub?" Adam asked. Eve looked off in the distance in silence. "I said, who's in the mood for some delicious grub?" Eve's head swiveled. "Oh, were you talking to me just now?" "Who else would I be talking to?" asked Adam. "Precisely," she said. "I'm the only other one here. Therefore, your question is stupid." "Is this what I have to look forward to?" Adam muttered to himself. "What was that?" asked Eve. "I said, who's in the mood for some delicious grub?" Eve sighed. "Fine. Me. I am." "All righty then. Give me time to prepare. Take some time, explore the grounds." "You cook?" she asked. "Yes, I do, and I'm a good cook if I say so myself. Although soon this will change, as you'll be doing all the cooking, dusting cobwebs, vacuuming dirt, and ironing my fig leaves with a hot rock. What do you think about that? Sweet deal, eh?" "Can I go back to being a rib?" asked Eve. "What? And deny me the precious gift our Lord has given to me? No, thank you. I'd much rather be short a rib. Besides, you know what they say guys can do once they have their ribs removed." "Enlighten me," Eve said. Well, I have you now, so I guess I don't have to worry about it." "Ha, we'll see about that." "Oh, well, I think once you try my cooking, you'll think differently," said Adam. Eve gave Adam a look for the first time. It wasn't a look he liked at all, and it was one that all men would come to learn they need to fear. Anyway, why don't you go for a walk? It's a beautiful day today. Go climb some trees, hit a rock with a stick, eat some fruit." "Yeah, I think it may do me so good to get some alone time." "Already?" Adam said. "It hasn't been a whole day." "Well, give it time." And with that she left the hut. She made her way back through the garden, sampling this and that. One thing she found out is that there were certain things that she loved, and certain things she detested. For instance, the thing that Adam called banana, which Adam confessed that when he ran out of ideas, he just started throwing letters together, was delicious. The thing that Adam called onion, well, that was terrible. "Adam," she shouted, and he poked his head out of the window. "Yes, dear?" "That onion is just terrible. Awful. Who in the world would ever eat such a thing?" "Ah, yes, true, the onion is wretched," Adam said, then added, "but wait till you try it cooked. It completely changes." "I'll take your word for it," she muttered. A few more steps later, and there in front of her was the tree. It didn't look very magical. It looked like any of the others, except for the fruit hanging from it. Though even the fruit didn't look extraordinary to her, other than the fact that this was the only tree that had grown them. Based strictly on looks, it was nothing she felt she just had to eat. What was intriguing, however, was the fact that God told Adam not to eat from the tree. The strange powers this fruit had bestowing on the consumer a great knowledge, particularly the ultimate knowledge of good and evil. That was something that made it hard to resist. Why was that such a bad thing? And why would God place the tree there with the sole purpose of not eating from it? Temptation? It made no sense. Was God a trickster? "Did I hear someone say that they wanted to know of good and evil?" hissed a voice from the tree. "Did I say that?" she asked. "Yes, you did," the voice said. "I don't remember saying that," she said. "Well, you did." "Show yourself, creature." A long green slithery thing made its way out around the branch so she could get a good look at it. "Adam!" she shouted. His head poked out of the window again. "I'm trying to make a pie," he shouted back. "What is it now?" "Why is this garden hose talking to me?" she asked. "That's not a garden hose. It's a snake." "Then why is the snake talking to me?" "I think he's Satan," Adam yelled. "Oh, well, that makes sense. Get thee behind me, Satan," she spoke. And with that, the snake disappeared from the tree and crept up from behind her onto her shoulders. "Ah, don't sneak up on someone like that," she yelled. "Sorry, but you said—" "I know what I said. It's a figure of speech." "Oh, and anyway, I'm not Satan," he whispered in her ear. "I'm just a snake." "Nuh-uh, no way. You're evil," she said to him. "How would you know if you haven't eaten the fruit that gives you that knowledge?" He had a point. It was a classic catch-22. For all she knew, the snake could be good, and biting in the fruit could be a good thing. But until she bit the fruit, she wouldn't know. Suddenly, the goat came walking by on its hind legs. This was the goat that had eaten of the fruit. This was the goat that could walk upright, talk, and sing. This was the goat that Adam had named Phil Collins. "I can feel it coming in the air tonight," he sang. "Oh, Lord," she said. "What should I do? It's just a fruit. Why all the fuss? And look what it did for the goat." "Yes," the snake hissed. "Look what it did for the goat." A fog rolled quickly in. Soon all that was visible was the tree, the fruit, and the snake. What should she do? This was the land of confusion. Should she? Shouldn't she? Tree, fruit, snake. The only thing missing was God. The answer seemed obvious. She took a bite. The fog rolled away. "How is it?" the snake asked. It's all right, I guess," she said, and tossed the rest of the fruit into a nearby bush where it promptly caught fire. "You'll regret this," came a voice from the bush. "I guess," she answered. "Honestly, I don't see what all the fuss is about. I don't feel any smarter yet. Calculus still eludes me. I'd eat more of this fruit if I could learn calculus, or even physics. Take what I did the other day, for example. I dropped a pumpkin and a pea from the roof, and they hit the ground at the same time. That still makes no sense to me. Will I learn the answers to that? Hello? Anything?" The bush did not speak. No reply at all. Chapter 6. That's a lot of trouble for a pie. Evening had approached fast. The hut would have been enshrouded in darkness had it not been for the little fiery pillars everywhere. She wasn't sure what they were, but they were très romantic. Adam looked at Eve. Not bad, right? "It'll do," she understated. "It'll do? Just kidding, it's gorgeous. Well, you're my lady, and I want to treat you right. Remember, God said I could beat you whenever you get out of line, but he also said to cherish you." Which I find a contradictory statement, but there you have it. I'm sure God won't make a habit of contradicting himself. "No," Eve agreed. "I'm sure he won't. Here, have some fermented juniper berries." He poured her a little in her solo cup, and she took a sip. The first spit take in history drenched his face in gin, which was now mixed with Eve's saliva. "No good?" he asked. "No good? It's atrocious." "Yes, I think so too, but it can get you pretty hammered. That's why I keep it around." "Typical male," she said. "What the hell's that supposed to mean?" "Not sure," she replied. "Anyway, do you have any of that fermented grape juice?" "Wine?" he asked. "Do you have any fermented grape juice?" she whined. "No, I call it—" never mind. Here." He poured her a cup. She sipped it. "Much better. So tell me, dear, what are these little tapered things on fire, and where did you find them?" "Those are candles, and I found them at the quaintest dollar store." "Really?" she asked. "No, you ninny, I made them from beeswax." "What's beeswax?" "Well, see, there are these things called bees that have built themselves a fine little home in the back garden. I haven't figured out the use of these creatures yet. I tried eating a dead one and it didn't really taste much like anything. I don't think it has much nutritional value. However, they secrete the most amazing stuff that tastes wonderful in baking, or even made into a drink and fermented." "Do you ferment everything?" she asked. "Oh, believe me," he said with a wink. "I've tried." "So what about the wax?" she asked, and was soon sorry she did. "Well, they vomit honey from their stomachs, and they secrete clear, tasteless, brittle wax flakes from their abdomen glands. The bees then chew and mould them, making a series of hexagons. It takes thousands of flakes to make 1 gram of wax." Source Wikipedia. "Each candle I made is about 100 grams. I guess if I could count, that's about 50 candles. Can you imagine how many flakes that took? To use the wax, I put a chunk into a pot, then put that on top of the thing I call a stove, and melt it, pour in a mould, and put what I call a wick in it. That's where you put a flame and what you see burning. I make the wicks from hemp and sheep nut veins." She looked at him from the corner of her eye. "Yep, it's exactly what it sounds like," clarified Adam. "Anyway, let's eat." He walked over to the area of the hut he called the kitchen, grabbed some meat off what he called the stove and slapped down 2 pieces, one for Eve and one for himself, onto paper plates. When he was building his hut, he had used mud, leaves, twigs and branches. He had made one room to sleep and a room called a kitchen. He was thinking about a room to use the bathroom because he really was tired of always having to go poop in front of all the animals. He had made a thing he called a stove and oven. He had dug a circular hole in the ground and lined it with rocks. He got the idea after realising long after the sun went down the rocks he had to sit on would always stay hot for hours. Then on the side of the hole he stacked a circle of rocks and kept it filled with twigs, branches, leaves and kindling. Sometimes the smoke was thick, so luckily he had the foresight to leave a hole in the roof above the stove, and when it rained he couldn't cook. "What are those things you just put the meat on?" she asked. "Those are paper plates. I made those too, by chopping down a tree and cutting the wood into chips. Then I chemically separated the cellulose fibres into a pulp, pressed it and rolled it into a shape I call paper, then cut them out into these shapes you see here called plates." "Sounds like a lot of work," she said. "Yeah, but it saved me from having to wash dishes." He then scooped the side dishes onto the plates. Eve ate ravenously. Although she'd sampled a few things from the garden, this was the first actual meal she'd eaten, and it was delicious. "Wow," she said, "this is amazing. What are we eating?" "Venison steaks from a deer. This is from one I hunted, skinned and butchered, then tossed 2 of what I call steaks in a pan. I added a little butter, garlic and rosemary for flavour. Then I made some whipped potatoes with this cool thing I call a whisk. I made it with the bones of little dead birds and used hair from a horse's tail to tie them together at one end. They are very thin and small and make the potatoes fluffy, but your arm gets exhausted when you use it. And you have to go fast. Then I dug up these things I call carrots and sautéed them in sage and brown butter. Marvellous. It's nothing really. Anyone can cook if they get bored enough. I've had plenty of time to experiment, believe me." "Which begs the question," said Eve. "How long have you been here?" "I really don't know. A while. Time is such a relative thing, isn't it? Like, how do I even mark the passage of time when nothing really changes? I mean, do I count the numbers of times the sun has gone round the earth? Do I use this here watch?" Adam pointed to his wrist and the black band wrapped around it. On the top was a digital display. "Where did that come from?" asked Eve. "I don't have the foggiest. I'm not even sure what it does. I assume the numbers supposedly measure or mark time somehow, but I'm not sure what each number means, or what numbers are. Bleh, no bother. I'll figure it out at some point, I guess." Before she knew it, she had finished eating her dinner. "Now, who's ready for dessert?" Adam asked. "No," she shouted. "I want to live in the garden with you. Please don't banish me to live in the desert. I've done nothing wrong." "Not desert," Adam said. "Dessert. It's delicious and wonderful, and it makes you feel, well, the opposite of how the desert would make you feel." He raced back into the kitchen and brought back a dish that was exuding the most intoxicating aroma. "Here, this is dessert. Oh God, I made of that one. Okay. "Sorry, I think it will take me a while to get used to the words you came up with to name things." "It's all right. Perhaps I could have called this something else. The words do sound very similar. I suppose I could have called it pudding like the British, but then what would I call actual pudding?" "Tell you what, I'll let you name this dish." "Really?" she asked. "Sure, why not? Terrific. I think I will name this pie." "Yeah, okay, and that's the last time I'll let you name something. Pie. I think pie's a cute word." "Let me tell you a story. Out in the garden grows this tall, unassuming looking grass that I call wheat. When the stalks start getting heavy, I know it's time to harvest. I separate each kernel from the stalk, I make sure there's no dirt or foreign materials left in the batch, and then I soak them to soften them up. Then I break up each kernel and separate what I call endosperm, for lack of a better term, from what I call bran. The bran makes me poop too much, but the animals seem to like it. The other stuff I turn into what I call flour. I then mix the flour with salt that I gathered from the mines a few miles away, the sugar that I harvested from the cane, and the butter, which comes from a whole other process I'd rather not talk about. Then I roll it out into a sheet, fit it into this dish, and fill the middle part with pears, raisins, cherries, and any other fruits that are in season. as well as more sugar, this tree bark, which I call cinnamon, and other spices that I've either plucked from a tree or bush or from the ground. I bake it in an oven for quite some time, depending on how hot the fire is, trying to control the flame with enough to cook thoroughly without burning it, and cut it with hand-carved stone knife. And you want to call it pie? No good?